Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is JRF and this is the continuation of the lecture series on cultural studies. And today's topic will be queer theory and its relation with cultural studies. So in this lecture we'll see how cultural studies looks at queer theory. So without wasting any time, let's start the video. So queer theory or studies is an attempt to redefine the sexual preferences and identities. It seeks to find a cultural and political space where the homosexual is no longer considered a perverted, unhygienic, immoral or sick other of heterosexuality. Queer theory is a significant contributor to the cultural studies and is closely aligned with social and political movements and activism. If we talk about its history, so in 1969 police raided the Stonewall Tavern in the city of New York. Many lesbians, gays and transvestites, transgenders, they fought back. The battles and the riots ensued and then they received a wide popularity globally. The first ever meeting of the British Gay Liberation Front took place at the London School of Economics on 13 November 1970. And the first annual Gay Pride March was conducted on 1st April 1972. Since then the movement has not looked back and it has received wide acclaim and popularity and support globally. The gay liberation movement has always sought to fight the social, economical, religious or medical oppression. And it has always sought to find a niche or a space, cultural and political space in the mainstream society. And since then they have always tried to locate a political and cultural space for the thus marginalized community in the mainstream society. They have always fought for the recognition by the community at large. Gay and lesbian theory or queer theory assumes that the sexuality or sexual preferences or orientation play a very vital role, a very prominent role in the construction of social identity. So sexual orientation is the fundamental category of understanding and analysis under the purview of cultural studies. They argue that sexual practices or sexual relationships that are outside the purview of a law that recognizes only heterosexual marriages or heterosexual relationship, they are considered to be untenable, unnatural, illegal or immoral. And as such they have always contested for their relationships, their sexual practices to be considered normal, natural in the mainstream societies. So following the ideas of Michel Foucault in the history of sexuality, queer theory argues that homosexual as a social category emerges in the post-Renaissance period. In the late 19th centuries, many literary or medical texts they speak of homosexual as a deviant or a criminal and homosexuality as a perversion or sick other of heterosexuality. We have many examples in the Bollywood movies as well. Lately the movie Aligarh, which featured Manoj Bajpayee, it also projected homosexuality as a perversion or as a corruption of the society. And the other movie Unfreedom, which was still not released in India, it also focused the lesbian relationship and it was burnt or it was not received with favor because it went against the social norms or social code of conduct, social moral code of conduct that speaks of only heterosexuality as the legal one or the accepted relationship. So cultural studies argues that it is not so much the sexuality of hetero or homo individual than the political or cultural context in which these sexualities are analyzed, lived or placed or redefined. And as such they argue that these practices, these studies need to be reanalyzed, redefined or restudied. So cultural studies suggests that sexuality, like gender, is primarily a socially constructed or enacted aspect of life and individuality. So cultural studies argues that it is not so much biological problem than the social or cultural practices or cultural problem. The post-structuralist theorists like Lee Edelman, Diana Fuss or Judith Butler enable gay and lesbian theories to debate the issues of identity, authenticity, marginality and epistemology. They emphasize on the social context of identity. They reject the essentialism, identity politics and the binary oppositions like heterosexuality or homosexuality. And as such they advocate for more fluid, more flexible and impermanent nature of these identities. In her famous essay Compulsory Heterosexuality and Lesbian Existence, the critic Adrienne Rich suggests or argues that even heterosexual women exhibit or they show certain fear like homophobia of lesbianism. She argues that even certain feminist critique of patriarchy, they are made to accept that heterosexuality is the norm of the day, or it is the only socially acceptable or culturally acceptable practice, and homosexuality or lesbianism is considered to be a deviation or perversion of heterosexuality or against the moral code of society. She says that even feminist critics need to understand the difference of class, color or sexual orientation even. In her view, lesbians were considered to be monsters, and as such lesbian feminists or queer theory activists, they emphasize for the accommodation of differences within the feminist practices, the differences of class, race and sexual orientations. So queer theory in cultural studies looks at various cultural constructions of the gay, lesbian as deviant, sick or criminal, and asks us to interrogate the ways in which an entire range of sexuality has been excluded through the politics of identity, a politics that informs and governs popular cultural representations of the queer. And queer theory emphasizes the liminal nature of identity. They stress the gay and lesbian identity as a crossing over. And in this direction, in this way, the work of Judith Butler, that is Gender Trouble, is a crucial one, as it offers a new way of dealing with the problems of identity. According to Judith Butler, gender identity is not a biological construct. It is, according to her, is a social construct. Gender identity is performed and performed repeatedly. According to Judith Butler, certain things are prescribed beforehand by the society for girls, and the girls are made to believe that these are the things primarily or exclusively for themselves, and they are made to believe until they take it to be as natural as that. They start behaving in the same manner as if it is their identity. So gender identity, according to her, is not a biological construct, it is a social practice, socially constructed thing that is rather imposed upon the gender, and the gender is defined. So queer theory interrogates the modes by which sexual boundaries of the inside and outside are constructed, sexual identities assigned and sexual politics formulated. Lastly, contemporary cultural studies of gay and lesbian sexualities speak of situational homosexuality, the same sex practices that result from certain situations or circumstances. For example, army barracks or imprisonment. And we have certain examples of this kind of literature as well. For example, the war poetry of World War I, the poetry of Siegfried Sassoon, Rupert Brooke, Wilfred Owen and Robert Graves. So in their poetry we can find many instances of homosexual references. So those references or the homosexual references are not the genuine or true homosexuality. They are the references of situational homosexuality. So cultural studies or queer theory argues for the acceptance, social or cultural acceptance of this kind of social identity, as the situational homosexuality is quite opposed to the true homosexuality, which is deemed to be psychic or somatic origin. So to sum up, we can say that queer theory demonstrates how sexuality has been considered the norm and homosexuality as a deviance. Queer theory argues that identity is secured only through performance and repetition. Homosexuality is a social construction, the result of power relations between the dominant sexual types, heterosexuals, and how such a construction delegitimizes gays and lesbians as deviants, criminals and immorals. So that is all for now. Hope you would like this video and feel free to give your valuable suggestions and comments in the comment box below. So subscribe the channel, like this video, share it among your friends so that they may also be benefited. We'll come back very soon in the next informative video. Till then, stay tuned, keep learning, stay motivated. Thanks for watching.